All right, diving in today, we're going to tackle a topic that's, well, pretty important if you're a pilot or thinking about becoming one, life insurance. But not just any life insurance. We're talking about the kind that's made for, folks who spend their time up in the air.
Yeah, and it's a topic that honestly can get pretty complex.
Definitely, especially when you consider all the different types of pilots out there. I mean, you've got your commercial airline pilots, your private pilots, student pilots, even like stunt pilots.
Exactly. And that's where things can get a little, well, misunderstood. See, a lot of folks assume that just because you fly, you're automatically considered, high risk by insurance companies.
Right, and that you're going to get slammed with crazy high premiums, right?
Exactly. But the reality is it's not quite that black and white.
So it's not just a blanket pilots are risky kind of deal.
Not at all. It's much more nuanced than that. Insurance companies, they really dig deep. They want to understand your specific flying activities.
So what kind of things are they looking at?
Oh, all sorts of things. Your pilot license, for starters. Are you a student pilot? A private pilot? Commercial? That makes a big difference.
Sure, that makes sense.
Then they look at the type of aircraft you fly. A small, single-engine plane, a large, multi-engine jet. The bigger and faster the plane generally, the higher the perceived risk.
Gotcha. So what about, like, how often you fly? Does that play a role?
Absolutely. Someone who flies every day for work is obviously going to be seen differently than someone who, say, only flies a couple of times a year for fun.
Right, right. So all these factors kind of get thrown into the mix when they're calculating your risk.
Precisely. They're also going to want to know about your flight experience. How many hours have you logged? What kind of training have you had? Even your safety record comes into play.
Makes sense. So once they've got all this info, how does it actually translate into, the kind of coverage you can get?
Well, that's where things get, I think, really interesting because you have, on the one hand, your traditional insurance companies. A lot of them will offer policy to pilots, sure, but they'll often have these exclusions written into the fine print.
Exclusions. What do you mean by that?
So an exclusion basically means that under certain circumstances, the insurance company won't pay out the death benefit.
So even if you, pay your premiums and everything, your family might not see a dime if something happens.
Right. And one of the most common exclusions you see with standard life insurance policies is, you guessed it, aviation-related incidents.
So if, let's say, something were to happen while you're flying, your beneficiaries are out of luck.
In many cases, yes. That's why it's so important for pilots to, well, understand those exclusions and to, really consider looking into specialized insurance providers.
Specialized providers, so companies that focus specifically on pilots.
Exactly. There are insurance companies out there who, cater specifically to pilots. They understand the ins and outs of aviation risk, and they offer policies that are designed to cover those gaps left by traditional policies.
Okay, so specialized providers, no aviation exclusions. That sounds promising. But what about these tailored coverage options I keep hearing about? What makes them so special?
Ah, yes. That's where things get even more interesting. See, with these specialized policies, you often have the option to add on what are called riders.
Riders.
Yeah, like think of them as add-ons that can customize your coverage. For example, there are riders that, adjust your coverage based on your flight hours. So as you gain more experience and your risk profile changes, your policy can adapt with you.
Oh, that's interesting. So if not just a set it and forget it kind of thing,
Not necessarily. You can have flexibility.
what other kinds of riders are there?
Oh, all sorts. You can get riders that cover you for different types of aircraft, which is important if you, say, transition from a single-engine plane to a multi-engine aircraft, or if you start flying commercially.
I see. So it's all about customization and making sure the policy evolves with the pilot's career.
Precisely. And that actually brings us to another important point, which is the application process itself.
Okay, so when you're applying for life insurance as a pilot, what can you expect?
Well, be prepared to provide a lot more information than you would for a standard life insurance application.
More than just your basic health and age?
Oh, yeah. They're going to want to know everything about your flying history, your pilot certification, how many hours you've flown, what type of aircraft you fly, how often you fly, any additional training you've had, your safety record.
Sounds like they're doing a deep dive of their own.
They really are. But it makes sense, right? They need all that info to accurately assess your risk.
Right. So with all these factors at play, how could a pilot, potentially get better rates?
That's a great question. And there are definitely things you can do to improve your chances of getting a more favorable rate. One of the most impactful, I'd say, is maintaining a strong safety record.
So basically being a safe and responsible pilot.
Exactly. Adhering to all the regulations, taking additional safety training, always prioritizing safe flying practices. Insurance companies, they love to see that commitment to safety, and it can really, pay off in the form of lower premiums.
So it's not all doom and gloom for pilots seeking life insurance. There are definitely ways to navigate the complexities.
Absolutely. And that's where, working with a company like Diversified Insurance Brokers can be so valuable. They specialize in helping pilots, sort through all these details.
So they can kind of act as a guide.
Exactly. They can help you compare different policies, understand the, often confusing fine print, and ultimately find the best options based on your individual needs and flying activities.
So to sum things up for our listeners today, it seems like the key takeaways are, flying is assessed on a case-by-case basis, specialized providers are key, and tailoring your coverage with those riders is crucial.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Excellent. Well, I think this has been a really informative deep dive. Anything else you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Just a final thought, really. Think about this. What steps can you take today to make sure your life insurance, is keeping pace with your own personal flight plan? Whether you're just starting out or you've got years of experience under your belt, consider your flying goals, the aircraft you want to fly, and how your needs might evolve down the line. Then talk to those experts like Diversified Insurance Brokers. They can help you make sure you and your loved ones are protected no matter where your aviation journey takes you.
Words of wisdom. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive, and we'll catch you